Hi, Doc Martin for KRAZ TV. Now this one's back at the Zero Channel, this book review. Well, there's a lot of bit of weepers in here. Horrendous story, great writing, good book, excellent book, a history. But it's called The White Devil's Daughters, The Women Who Fought Slavery in San Francisco Chinatown by Flynn Siler. Oh, what a book. Anyways, let me tell you about Flynn Siler. Anyways, here's another book that she wrote, The Lost Kingdom, Hawaii's Last Queen, the Sugar Kings, and America's First Imperial Adventure. And that one we will be doing again because, as you remember when I did the book review on Grover Cleveland, he was outraged that those people had gone behind his back and settled in and took over and deposed the king and ran the queen off of Hawaii. And so when she was coming back in, she's going to kick some butt. But that has nothing to do with this story. Well, in a way it does, but anyway, she's the author of that. Flynn Siler is a New York Times best-selling author and journalist. Her most recent book, Lost Kingdom, is that Hawaii's Lost Queen. Her first book, The House of Mondavi, Rise and Fall of the American Wine Dynasty. Well, I think I want to read that one because I'm Arizona's first sparkling winemaker, and I'm in the field and all that. But anyways, was a finalist for a James Beard and a Gerald Loeb. She is a longtime contributor and former staff writer for the Wall Street Journal, CNN, CNBC, and BBC. She's been a guest commentator. She lives in San Francisco Bay with her husband and their 2 sons. Oh, God. I've been to San Francisco, and I have lived in Chinatown. Well, we rented a place there and lived during my friends coming over from England. We did martial arts, and so we lived down there for a little while. It's by Alfred A. Knopf Press, New York, 2019. Where to start? Well, a revelatory history of the trafficking of young Asian girls that flourished in San Francisco and the West during the first 100 years of Chinese migration from 1848 to 1943, which is ironically the last year of the Exclusion Act, and 1882 is when they had the Chinese Exclusion Act, all the way through till 43, and an in-depth look at the safe house that became a refuge of those seeking their freedom. Beginning in 1874, the Occidental Mission Home on the edge of San Francisco's Chinatown served as a gateway to freedom for thousands of enslaved and vulnerable young Chinese women and girls. Run by a courageous group of female abolitionists who fought the trade in Chinese women, it survived earthquakes, fire, bubonic plague, and violence directed against its occupants and supporters. With compassion and investigative history sharp-eyed, Flynn Siler tells the story of both the abolitionists who challenged the corrosive anti-Chinese prejudices of the time and the young women who dared to flee their fate. We are brought viscerally into the events through the lives of 2 women in particular, Donaldina Cameron, called Dolly, from a prominent Scottish-American family who ran the home from 1899 to 1934, and Tun Fu Wu, who arrived at the house in the arms of a burly policeman at the age of 6 or 7, rescued from a Chinatown brothel, where she was a household slave and would grow up to become, and who would become Cameron's translator, deputy director, and dear friend. Siler relates how Dolly and the other women who ran the home defied contemporary convention even occasionally breaking the law by physically rescuing girls from the brothel or by snatching them off ships as they were being smuggled in, and how they helped bring the exploiters to justice. Well, she sure worked on that. She also shares the moving stories of many of the other girls and young women who, like Wu, sought and found refuge at the mission, and she writes about the lives they went on to lead. She brilliantly portrays the San Francisco and Chinatown of the period, filled with characters of every variety and persuasion, evil and benign. Julie Siler has indelibly brought to light an overlooked chapter in our history and resurrected these women's stories with passion and sympathy. And that is why we're showing this. And because we have a playlist at Zero Channel and at KREZ TV called Our New Chiefs Are Strong Women. You want to know a strong woman? Here's one. Thank you. And the strong woman right now, there she is. Thank you, Julie. Oh, you got to put this book down sometimes. It's just horrendous, horrendous. But anyways, it started before the gold rush. And before the gold rush, people started coming in a little bit. But then I guess the rail companies or agents of the United States went across to China with bags of money. And it's mostly in Guangdong province. So it wasn't far off of outside of Shanghai. As soon as they got there, they just started going into the countryside and recruiting. And now these are all men they brought over. I mean, we're not here to look for the women. The women were brought over later. And there were a couple of women that did come with their husbands, but not very many. But most of the men were brought over to work on the railroads. And so the railroad didn't get finished until 1869 at the promontory in Utah. But anyways, they built and did most of the work. Then they started doing gold mining. And they came over for the gold rush also in 1849. So people were jealous of them because they would stick together and they would work and live meagerly and worked very hard for their money and did incredible feats. So then they thought, well, we got to bring them some comfort. So they brought women over in boatloads just to be prostitutes. And of course then it was easy for the people in China. Well, they thought our girls, they didn't fare as big in their society then as boys did. So they were more sought after, and so they would let girls die when they were babies or expose them out like the Greeks did. But a lot of them said, hey, we can get some bucks for her and get her out of here. And so they shipped them off to America, not caring or knowing what their fate was. This is a horrendous story. So anyways, they started landing, and then it was pretty horrendous. There were tongs or families, and there were certain groups that took over certain areas, and and they had rival fights and all that to control these women and extract their due. And they made them say, well, you can work for 4 years and then you're on your own. Well, a lot of these women never lasted 3 to 4 years with the barrages of crap that they had to go through. Fed. Then towards the end, later, I don't know, it's 1880 or something, there was bubonic plague, so they locked them down. Of course, the white man figured he had to have policemen in there. Once it became more, after the gold rush, it became more like a city, and so they had mayors and banks and establishment like that. And so they said, well, we're going to have a police squad. Well, the police squad, all they did was become corrupt with tongs, and they'd bring the women back. They would just kill Chinese. They didn't give a shit. Yeah, I said it, didn't I? So it's a horrendous story. But anyways, Cameron, Dolly, was a Presbyterian or Methodist. There were Methodists and Presbyterians had these homes, and they started them. She had to beg money and talked to the other women, and they got homes ready for them. And the houses were too little because there were just so many women, 15, 20 women in one room that they were trying to take care of. Now, they just didn't say that everybody that was a Christian treated these people with, let them go and do kind of what they wanted. They said, no, if you're coming here, you're going to be a Christian. You're not going to learn, you're not going to speak Chinese anymore. You're going to learn English and things like that. So it was a little stern, but I don't know whether Cameron did that or not. It doesn't really say. But in the end, the author did speak about a few of her shortcomings for the time and the way that she did things, but that was just the way that she had to deal with it, or couldn't deal with it, and the constraints of the way society was built in this was the Edwardian age, right, or after Victoria. So it was a lot of stuff happened in the 1880s and 90s, and 1890s, and so that's when she took over. But actually, she started it long before that, in getting it started. But in 1893, she became the director until 1934, when she just mandatory that the church said she had to retire. But they were involved in the 1906 earthquake, and it was horrendous. I mean, tell you, it knocked down thousands and thousands of buildings, big fires, and all of that. So she got the children out, and she got them a home. I think they had to go to San Rafael or Paseo, somewhere in there, and got them straightened out for a while. Then they went back and built, I think it was 920 Sacramento Street. So there is a timeline in here that's really helpful. What a great bibliography and writing. I mean, tell you, this woman has done her research. Acknowledgement, cast of characters. There was organized crime, and there was fighting. Oh, here's the timeline. So, Congress passes the 13th Act formally abolishing slavery, 1865. We knew that, right? Yeah. Then Donaldina Cameron was born in New Zealand in 1869. She died in 1968, 99 years old, in California. So, and her friend Wu, one of the girls that was bought at 7 years old, who stayed with her, was at her bedside reading to her. And Wu died in 1975. So, in 1871, 18 Chinese men were killed by a mob in L.A., and 15 of them were lynched. So, in 1872, Cameron shows up in San Francisco aboard a steamer. 1873, a group of women from California branch of Women's Foreign Missionary Society. They form it. 1874, in 1874, the Occidental Board rents a small apartment for a house for refugees, refuge for Chinese women. In 1874, her mother dies when she's 5 years old. In 75, a Tong War erupts over Golden Peach, a Chinese prostitute. Same year, they proposed a requiring every Chinese prisoner in jail to have their hair clipped within an inch of their scalp. So they cut their pigtail off, just to be bastards. Just to be bastards. So anyways, there was a court, U.S. Supreme Court, known the case of 22 lewd Chinese women in 1876. Oh, the specials were the officers in 1876. The Chinese 6 companies appealed to the Board of Supervisors for Protection in 1876. First Chinese Exclusion Act of 1882. 1888, Cameron becomes engaged to George Sargent. In 1892, Congress passes the Geary Act requiring all Chinese to register and carry photo identification, a law opposed by the 6 companies, of course. But what do we got, right? Picture ID. 5 sticks of dynamite are found at the Mission House in '95, so people tried to blow them up all the time. Oh, she arrives at 920 Sacramento Street, that was the address, in '95 to teach sewing. So they taught these women some skills, what they could do. Bubonic plague scare in San Francisco. Chinatown is quarantined. Oh, then they had the flu in 1918. On April 18th, the day planned for the Mission Home's annual meeting, a powerful earthquake shakes San Francisco. Fires rage across, and she leads her charges to safety. Then they have Abe Roof. He started to be a lawyer. Yeah. A state legislator. Oh, it was Fisk. So I thought she had hired the Roof, and then he pleads guilty. And then Eugene Schmitz and Roof are indicted following the French restaurant scandal. Abe Roof flees and is captured, and then the San Francisco police chief is also indicted. He pleads guilty, and in less than a month, Schmidt is found guilty also. So, now, in 1908, Cameron and the Mission Home moved from Oakland, that's where they went, to back into the 920, so they had to rebuild the home for these women. Oh, 1912, women vote for the first time in California. 1913, California law aimed at Asians bars aliens from owning land. The Great Flu Epidemic in 1918, and there it was. Have you got your mask on? That was a big deal. That was the push for masks then. Just like they're here, worthless. My rant. To 1920, she marks 25 years at Mission House. So then in 32, she goes with 8 deportees back to China in Canton to see if they can set up a mission over there. But they said it was so convoluted and stupid that they just came back that they never established a mission over there. So, Prohibition is repealed. 1933, the Golden Gate Bridge. And in 1952, Wu retires. 1934 is when she retires, but it doesn't say that in here. In 1943, which it doesn't say in there, the final Exclusion Act of the Chinese Exclusion Act was repealed or died off because they were our allies then. Wu retires. 1968, Cameron dies with Wu by her side. 1975, Wu dies. It is just a horrendous, horrendous story, but so well written and documented. There's plenty of photos, Here's a cute one. Kids holding on to their pigtails going down the street. So with that, on a brighter note, I end this long book review from, that's right, who did we say it was? Capstone? No. Alfred Knopf. Called The White Devil's Daughter, Fawn Kwai, Foreign White Devil. That's what she was called. Her daughters, the women who fought slavery in San Francisco's Chinatown, by Julia Flynn Siler. Keep reading. We got this one at the library also. Goodbye.